daylight savings and the fact that we're past the equinox means it's finally light enough in here after seeing a movie that I can do one of these videos without turning on the light. But anyways, I saw Your Name because I heard it's the second highest grossing movie in Japan after Spirited Away, and it's like one of the top 20 or 30 top rated movies on the IMDb top 250 right now. And I mean, new movies like this, the hype drives the score all the way up, and that's why they get up there. Like Logan's a really good movie, but I don't think it's top 250 material. Like, the reason that's on there is because, like, everyone's like, oh, it's the last Hugh Jackman as Wolverine movie, let's all give it a 10. And it'll probably drop off eventually, and I don't know if that's the case for this movie, but this movie was pretty fantastic. Letter grade, I would give it, for me personally, it would be an A, and numerical score is a 9 out of 10. Keep in mind the reason I'm not going all out A plus 10 out of 10 with this movie is a lot of it is artistic choices that I didn't agree with, like the soundtrack and just like the art style. Like, the backgrounds are really detailed and computer generated, but then the people look hand drawn, and if they're far enough away, their facial features just disappear, and it's just like a head is just hair with one color as a face. And since Japanese animation tends to be really detailed, it feels a little weird that they would do that, especially for like a theatrical film like this, where usually they have a big budget and then the reason like in anime TV shows is they have a small budget, but they like the really detailed art style, so they just have this super detailed character, but they don't make them move very much. But anyways, the only thing like objectively wrong with this movie from a plot perspective that I noticed, I'm going to start getting into spoilers, so all I'm going to say is it's pretty fantastic. Definitely possibly the best movie in theaters right now. If it's in your area, I'd recommend it. It's also pretty appropriate if you want to bring your children to. The only inappropriate things in this movie are like the first time we see them swap bodies when and this movie's all about remembering names and I forget their names already. I'm terrible with names, by the way. Like, I'm terrible with remembering people's names in English, and let alone in another language. But when Taki is in Mitsuko, I think that's her name's body, like, he feels her boobs because, like, he's never had boobs before. I just said boobs. And then everyone in the theater laughed because ha 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 ha, it's funny because he has boobs. And then when Mitsuko, I think, is in Taki's body, like, she feels her chest and like, he doesn't have boobs because he's a guy, and then she like feels her crotch and notices, she's just like, there's something down there, and then everybody laughs because ha ha ha, she has a penis now. But other than that, it's basically a G-rated movie. Anyways, oh yeah, spoilers, plot, things that went wrong. Okay, so toward the end of the movie, it starts getting kind of crazy, but it's not crazy enough that you can't follow it. Like, I followed it just fine. This movie does have more endings than Return of the King, though. And I just saw Return of the King on TV 2 weekends ago, so there's like 8 endings, and this movie has maybe 10 or 11. But so so the thing is, there's this crater, and on top of this mountain, and it like crosses a boundary of space time, and there's some magical element in there. So they both, at the beginning of the climax, they both find their way to the top, at different points in space time, and then they finally find each other, and they're like, "Let me write my name on your hand so we don't remember." So they write their names on each other's hands, and then so I'm gonna stop even trying to remember their names. The so the guy writes on the girl's hand. The girl starts writing on the guy's hand, but then she disappears, and we see that the guy sees that she had started to write on his hand before she disappeared, and we don't know what happened to her right after that. We just know she's running back down the mountain. And then it's not until like right before the comet strikes that she looks at her hand, and it says, "I love you" in Japanese. And I'm like, wait, so you didn't. So as you were running down the mountain, the first time we see you after you disappear, you are saying, like, Taki Taki, I gotta remember his name, Taki Taki. And then you don't remember that he wrote his name on your hand. And it's not until like 10 minutes later that you finally look at your hand, and it doesn't even say his name, it just says, "I love you." And she even says to herself, "But I still don't know your name." And I'm like, that's what I was thinking too. And also, if I were in that situation, like, rewinding back to earlier in the movie, they both kind of figure out, okay, there's this, just randomly, I swap bodies with some random person on the opposite coast of the country. So, and then they start leaving notes for each other, like, "Hey, stop spending my money and stuff, show up to work on time," and stuff like that, and stop telling me to date this girl or this guy. And at that point, I would have tried contacting them, and I would have like tried to arrange a meetup and try to see if we could explain this whole situation. But then, like, I asked myself questions like that because there were certain things as the movie plays out that you aren't totally sure of, or might be a little inconsistent. But then, once you know the twist that happens in the end, the twist being that it's not just a body swapping thing, it's also a time travel thing, you're like, oh, that makes sense why her number isn't available when he calls or texts her. So, like, for me, this movie is like a strong 9, but I wouldn't go up to a 10. I still think Silence is probably the best movie I saw in theaters this year. And I just looked at the Wikipedia page for Silence, and it really breaks my heart to know that it had a $40 million budget and it only made $15.5 million at the box office. And that made me sad because it was amazing. Nobody went to see it. Buy it on like Blu-ray or DVD or something, because those people, Scorsese deserves your money. I don't care how many other popular movies he's made. Out of the movies of his I've seen, I haven't seen all of them yet, but out of the movies of his I've seen so far, that one's probably my favorite. But anyways, Your Name, great movie. Go see it if you have a chance. It's worth your time if you don't want to see it, but your friend like drags you to see it and they're like, "Oh, come on, let's go see it." Go with them cuz I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.